week of January, the first week of 2023. We've had a lot of special videos lately. We had the Jupiter in Aries, great video. We had the Capricorn solstice, still valid. And we had the look ahead to 2023, almost timeless. And so we're going to forego the never popular monthly forecast and just sort of bundle January's forecast into this week's. We really can't look at this week without looking at the month ahead. Now, as you begin a new year, you always have that sort of freshness, it's a new start. That's great. And this year, we're going to have a little bit of a lag on that because we begin the year with Mercury retrograde, Mars retrograde, and if you want to throw it in, Uranus retrograde. I wouldn't make a thing of Uranus retrograde if it wasn't for the fact that he's turning direct later in the month. So we are feeling that a little bit more than we otherwise might. Uranus is retrograde a lot of the time anyway, so it doesn't make that much of a difference. But in this case, yeah, he's at the degree, he's stationing all month long, and you feel it a little bit more. Now, these are three very active planets. None of them like to sit still. Mercury, certainly, you know all about Mercury retrograde. Actually, Barron's, a financial magazine, had Mercury retrograde in the title of their article for early 2023. I was very surprised. What's dragging stocks in early 2023? And one of the things that they listed was Mercury retrograde. They're not wrong. They may have been facetious, but they're not wrong. Mars retrograde, Mars stationing to go direct on the 12th. That's going to be something that we're feeling much more intensely as we get closer and closer to that station. And then, as I said, Uranus, who's going to go direct right after the new moon on January 21st. So we begin the year with a bit of slowdown, but it's not that kind of like just chill out slowdown. It's much more a kind of, I'd love to go forward. I'd love to make changes. I'd love to do things differently. I'd love to do something. And yet I can't quite get traction. Frustration is what we see as a possible consequence of this. And so my usual, especially with Mercury and Mars in Gemini and so on, my usual caveat about be careful driving and with transportation and stuff is especially important at this time. Also, too, just generally communications, emails, texting, and stuff like that. If you want to make a point, you might want to not do it with this thing. Well, you might want to talk on the phone rather than sending a text. That's just a little hint. The New York Times called 2022 the year of rage. And I don't think that they were very far off the mark with that. Whether you're talking about mass shootings or war or, more local stuff, I think that there was a lot of rage in 2022. And I don't think that it's going to abate all that much in 2023, certainly not at the very beginning of the year. Now, I don't think people watching my videos are the type to go off the rails too far, but when there is some emotional contagion around, it's very difficult to, completely ignore it and not be taken up in it. And if the very least, you tend to run into a lot of people who are a little bit extra, so watch the caffeine intake, because, any one of us can get a little bit more. If the circumstances are right, any one of us can kind of pop a little bit, maybe not so catastrophically, but still in all, we want to be mindful as possible, as much as possible, as long as possible. And so keep that in mind for this week, especially because the drag of the retrogrades is countered by the waxing moon, right? The moon is waxing to Friday's full moon, and Friday's full moon is in the sign of Cancer. So we have a very protective, cautious kind of energy in the Cancer moon, and then it's a full moon. This is not a particularly easy full moon ever. It should be, if it's a clear night, it should be a very pretty one in the northern hemisphere because it'll be high in the sky, which is good. But the vibe that goes with it is not particularly easy. The Cancer moon is protective, security oriented, and does not particularly like being exposed the way it is at the full moon. So it's a tense kind of energy that kind of pops out, right? So we're sort of holding it in and we can't make the progress we want with the retrogrades. And then this full moon pops the emotional side of things, pops things out in a less than, you know, it's not the Aquarius full moon. You know, it's not something that is easy to deal with on a sort of rational level. We can throw in the fact that this full moon is closely conjunct Pallas Athene in Cancer, and Pallas Athene is the truth teller asteroid. So what we'll see here is on a collective level, we're going to see more stuff coming out, but stuff always comes out on the collective level. So that's not really much. I mean, it'll be received with a little bit more energy and a little bit more attention than you might otherwise see, but it's not actually that different anyway. In our personal lives too, this might be a time when we kind of push it all out there. We let people know what we're thinking. And again, you know, if you're doing this in a clear-headed way, that's a wonderful opportunity. If you're just kind of reacting to things, less so. And a full moon in Cancer is a recipe for reaction. So I don't want to make it seem like this is a bad week. It's not. And there's a lot of good potentials in it. There's a lot of really nice aspects, actually, as we go through the week. It's a time when we have to be mindful of the potential for a little bit of frustration. It's a time when we have to say that people are going to be a little reactive and perhaps a little extra emotional. And I would say that the idea of progress is not the thing for this week. This is a week where it might be hard to move towards your goals. Mind you, I mean, I'm not sure how much we really need goals and how many goals we need and how many things we really need to do. The great recipe for this week, a great strategy for this week might be just to sort of, you know, enjoy what you got. You know, just sort of, you know, have that nice cup of coffee. Always enjoy a nice cup of coffee, enjoy a good meal, and yeah, recognize that there's a little bit of frustration. Recognize that you'd kind of like to get 2023 underway, but it's going to take a little bit of time. This full moon, end of the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, could be a little bit of a rough ride for some of us, not for everybody, but for some of us, it could be a little bit of a rough ride. Over the course of the next few weeks, Mars is going to go direct, then Mercury is going to go direct, and then we have this very exciting Uranus station direct on a new moon and on the 21st, 22nd. That's going to be quite a time. And after that, we'll really be moving forward, probably.